Okay, here we go. I'm excited for this one. So, welcome everybody to Witch Bitch, where we talk the real tea. And today we're talking about Easter Island, aka Rapa Nui, and the ancient mysteries it holds, because there's a lot going on with this one. It's kind of eerie, but in like the best way possible. So, you ready, Mom? While I open my notebook.
Let's get into it.
Okay. So, Rapa Nui is a tiny little island in the middle of the Pacific, and it's 3,700 kilometers away from Chile and 4,000 kilometers away from French Polynesia. And the whole mainstream story is that people from French Polynesia migrated to Easter Island, basically, and then that's when they started doing all the cool crap there, like building the Moai and stuff. So there's 887 Moai on the island, like in total. So that's a lot of ginormous, like megalithic structures.
So the Moai is the structure. Is the
Moai,
statue.
sorry. Moai are the statues, the famous, like big nose, big eyebrows, sort of. Yeah. They're the famous Easter Island statues. Sorry, I should have been more clear on that. But yeah, so there's 887 in total, according to my research. So again, I'll begin by saying, like, if you're interested in this, do your own research, because you never know what's out there. But this is what I've learnt based on my research. So yes. And there's 6 main sites on the island itself, like, and these sites are kind of where they've got Moai all together facing the same direction. And so there's 6 altogether, and for the most part, they are looking at the sky or at the ground or at the island, and there's only one site out of the whole 6 where they're all looking to the ocean, which I find strange, because if you're an islander Polynesian culture, I don't know, I would just assume that all of your structures would be about the ocean, because it's like such a big part of your life. But there's only one site that all the structures are looking out to the ocean, which is interesting. And then there's one site out of the 6 called Ahu Vinapu, where it's the most ancient site out of everything found on the island of Rapa Nui, and it's literally just a wall. That's all it is. It's just this wall. And if anyone has been watching the last like ancient mysteries segment that we did, it was the previous one. I was talking about ancient Egypt and how they have these strange ways of carving stone and fitting these stones together. It was just something that made their lives a lot more difficult than it needed to be. However, making it difficult for themselves did allow the structures to last thousands and thousands of years. So I think it was worth it, but it was just strange to see, like, how they've carved one stone and then 4 stones around it to fit it in. It's just kind of weird. And that same technique was used at this ancient site on Easter Island called Vinapu. So it's just a wall, and it's got the same correlation, like the same technique. Thought that was worth mentioning, because I will be going into some more eerie similarities between Easter Island and some other places around the world. And I feel like coming up soon, doing an episode all about meeting all these cultures together. Maybe once we've done a few more, because there's some real just not coincidences, because I don't think they're coincidences, but you know what I'm talking about. There's just some weird stuff going on. So yeah, there's this weird wall, and it's the most ancient site of the whole island. And the mainstream story is that like all these moai, all these statues are built within like around 100 years, a bit more. So 100, over 100 years, 200 years, they built 887 of these huge statues. And like we only see the heads, but there's actually whole bodies in the ground underneath the heads.
Right.
So they had to dig these, like, well, actually, first they had to carve it, then they had to, transport that carving from the quarry. Who knows? Like, we'll get into that as well, because it's just kind of impossible. And then, so they had to get it out of the quarry to the site, and then they dug a whole thing to fit the body in. And scientists say that it's just like build up. Like before, if you went back at the time, it would be the whole moai, like the head and the body. But over time, dirt and stuff has come up
Right.
to that thing.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, we're talking meters and meters and meters. I don't understand how that can happen. Like in, I know 1,000 years or however many years it was. Like I still, that does not fit right with me. Like look at the pyramids in Egypt. This is in desert where there's sand everywhere, and still is the full length of the pyramid that we see today. And
So do you
that
think they
was
were
even
buried?
older. Oh, yeah. I think they
Yeah.
dug it down, and like, as what a coincidence. Why would over time the dirt build up just to the heads, so just the heads are showing? Why not to the nose? Why not to the like to the chest? Why is it just cut off at the head, and for all of them as well? It's not like some of them are just at different angles, which would make sense considering it's not a flat surface all the way around. Like these moai are around the whole island, hills, everything, and they're all just the heads. Like that does not make any sense. Some of them you can see the bodies because they're like propped up on stone, like some of the sites. Not all the moai are buried completely to the head, but all the moai that are buried to the head. So I just don't really,
You think it's too
I'm
much of a
not buying it.
coincidence?
Oh yeah, I'm not buying it one bit that they just over time enough dirt, like meters of dirt covered exactly to the point where the head began. Like it's just weird. And so another weird thing is that these faces, if you have a look at them over time, they actually sort of change, like the features of the faces like change, and it's in phases. Like it's not just here and there dispersed around. Like it's a gradual process of changing like the features of the faces of these moai. And you look at the older ones and they're different from the earlier one, like the most recent ones, and it just is very diverse across the board. And none of them really look like Polynesians either. They all have very much like big protruding noses, which isn't something typical of Polynesians. Like it's just kind of strange that these people would carve all these faces like almost as an offering and it not look like their own
Mm.
race.
Mm.
So, obviously I'm thinking aliens, but you never know. Like, it could be anything. They could have contact with other countries, other civilizations, which does make the most sense as we'll go into this, because there's so many connections between Easter Island and the rest of the world. So it would make sense that they're making these statues, these like sacred spaces, these beautiful megalithic structures about these other civilizations. Who knows why, but it just does make sense that they would do that, because they would know that there's some other type of people out there that don't have the same features as their own. So yeah, and also this whole like differentiating of noses and features over time does suggest that this was going on for more than 100 years, like that it was taking a lot of time to carve and create these megalithic statues.
Yeah, right.
Because over 100 years, why are you changing so much? Like, it's actually incredible how much it changes, to the point where if the timeline of the mainstream is correct, they would be changing the features like every year, every couple years. So I just don't get that. It would make a lot more sense if it was over a wider span of time, and the faces, they were meeting new people, new cultures, new civilizations, who are like, who knows, contacting spirits, and the visions of these spirits were coming through, and that's why they're morphing and changing their statues.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, a lot of the evidence points to something else going on, not what the mainstream story is, as it always is in these videos. So yes, that's another interesting fact. So going back to this whole idea that French Polynesians came and migrated to the island of Rapa Nui, there's some. It's really worth diving into this, and I would like to hear what you think after I share this information. So there's a couple of factors that go into this whole idea that it was just French Polynesians coming down and finding the island, because it's a 30 to 50-day journey from French Polynesia to like Rapa Nui, and that means that they would have to pack enough water, pack enough supplies. I mean, they can go fishing, but I can't imagine that they wouldn't bring other food as well, like enough food for some diversity in their diet. So food, water, supplies, who knows what else. Like a 50-day journey, 30 to 50-day journey is a lot. And they would, to pack that enough supplies, they would need to know how long they were going to be gone for. So it's either two things. They sent scouts out in every direction from French Polynesia to find a new place to go, and they dispersed all different explorers, like from all different angles, going everywhere, and then they would come back and let the island know, oh, there was an island over here, or we didn't find anything. Or they knew where they were going and somehow knew about this place, which again, I wouldn't be surprised. Sorry, there's three, not two. There's three possibilities. Or there was just a complete random miracle sort of thing, and they were just traveling around and came across the island, which, like, I always believe in miracles, but some serious work would have had to gone into that from the universe to make that happen. Because like winds, we're talking about waters. That's the least likely possibility, although it still is a possibility that there was just some random scouts from that island randomly making their way and finding that place. So that being said, if there was scouts to be dispersed around, I don't know if they would be packing for that long of a journey. I don't know. 30 to 50 days is a long time. I mean, they could. Obviously, I'm not a French Polynesian back at that time, but I can't. That's a lot of preparation to go into that. I don't know.
It's double
But then
that, isn't
again,
it? Because they'd have to go back. It's
yeah, then they
double
would
that.
have to go back. Yeah, that's
Mm.
true. That is true. Then they would have to go back. So it's even longer. So yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. And I don't know if they would.
They would have to be motivated. It would have to be a
Mm,
big reason for them to be leaving their home.
yeah, yeah, 100%. So, like, again, that is a possibility. But what makes the most sense to me was that they knew that there was something and they headed for it. Because they would also need some kind of navigation. I mean, they always navigated with the stars, but this is a tiny speck in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's just mind blowing to me. Even if they dispersed, say, 100 different boats in every direction, it's still the chances that they found this without any navigation, like, or any knowledge of this place. It's just incredible if they found it that way, because it's
So you
a
think they
tiny
had
speck.
some information, some intel of where it was, and that they knew that they were going to go there? You think that's the most
So
likely scenario?
yes. So actually that brings me to our next point of this. So there is a legend of the Rapa Nui people, and it's also in this tablet that's been found called the Rongo tablet, and it's talking about the legend of how the Easter Island came to be and how it was founded, and it's all about this king who had a dream about how his island was going to sink or was sinking. There's some mixed, like, it's really hard with all these things going to different sources because they are varied. So some say that he had a dream that his island was going to sink, and then other times it's that he noticed that it was sinking, like his island was sinking. So yeah, either way, his island was sinking and he had to go find other land to inhabit. And the island that he was currently in that's sinking is called Hiva in the legends, which Hiva Oa is an actual island in French Polynesia. So
Yeah.
that makes sense. And yeah, so from there he went with 7 travelers to find this island, and he consoled with a seer, like a spiritual sort of wisdom keeper seer, who told him where to go, kind of like who directed him and helped him. And he found Easter Island, left a explorer there, and then went back to Hiva and brought his people back. So, and according to one source that I was reading, it was talking about how the legend says that they actually had like left Hiva with the Moai and on their first trip, and brought the Moai, the statues, to the island. So
Right.
they didn't actually, but again, it is legend because there is a quarry site. So maybe there was some Moai that they brought with them, but there is a quarry site, so we know that there was at least some being carved there. But yeah, so it makes sense to me that they knew there was something there, whether or not it was with spiritual connection, some sort of third eye, like crazy shit, where they knew where to go. Like they were really tapped in, because these people back then, like if we're really going to put ourselves in the mindset of them, they're surrounded by nature 24/7. They're one with Mother Earth, they're one with their spirit and source.
Mm.
So that would make sense. Or they were told, like, maybe follow this star and you'll find it. Or, who knows, from another culture. Like, I mean, when we were talking about Egypt, ancient Egypt and Atlantis, the ancient Egyptian priests were talking about how you head out to the Atlantic Ocean, you hit some islands, then you hit Atlantis, and then you keep going and you hit a continent, and that continent was America. So they knew that there was a continent there, even though America wasn't discovered until 2000 years later. So these people had a lot more knowledge than we're led to believe. So that also is a possibility, that they somehow knew that there was an island here and that's where they were going to inhabit. And this Rongo Rongo tablet, the language on it, like the scripture, is, well, it's not really scripture, it's more like these men, like these men in different positions, sort of. It's crazy similar to Polynesian language.
Yeah,
so,
right. I remember you telling us that in the last video.
Yeah, it's like crazy similar. That it's, to me, there's no dispute that the Rapa Nui people definitely through time morphed their knowledge from this crazy, like, original Polynesian language. So that makes sense. And another big correlation is what a lot of people don't realize. The Moai on the backs have carvings on them. They have carvings all across their back. And I'm not talking like scratchings or etchings, like birds, real pictures, scorpions. It's just crazy. And there's some videos online. I might add them to the description on YouTube, where it's mind-blowing. So there's these connections between the carvings on the back of the Moai and carvings at, I believe it's Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is to date the oldest site, megalithic site discovered. So Göbekli Tepe is basically what is changing mainstream's perception on the history that they've decided to create about humanity, because it goes against everything that they've talked about and stated as fact, when it comes to the origin of people and the timeline of when we became civilized and not hunter-gatherers. And there's this temple, sort of, and it's got all these pillars, and these pillars have beautiful carvings in them, and they're not hunter-gatherer carvings at all. Like, they're not some sort of cave painting. They're really detailed, and the correlation between the back of the Moai and these pillars in Göbekli Tepe are like insane.
Yeah, right.
And it's one of those things where they're not identical. But the shapes, and you have to look at it and have some understanding of symbology and how cultures would morph each other and interpret information in their own way. But you can still visibly see there's some real similarities, and I'll add a link to a video of this guy talking about it, because there's like a bird in both of them, and they're in sort of the same position, and there's a scorpion in one, and then the legs kind of go in an M. So there's the scorpion body and then two legs that go like this, and if you join them together, it's an M. And then on the other one, so one's the scorpion and then one's this same M shape from the legs of the scorpion. So it's just things like that. But something taken by itself, you might not really think about it at all or even notice it, but it's just how there's so many similarities like that where it just cannot be ignored. Someone's noticed it. A lot of people have noticed it and are talking about it. So there's one connection from Easter Island to other cultures like Göbekli Tepe, and then there's also the language with original Polynesian language, which, like, I think from me saying that out loud, I'm like, well, aren't the natives of Rapa Nui like aren't they Polynesian? So that would make sense for their language to resemble Polynesian. So I'm going to do some more digging into that. Why that's because I was watching it from a source that just didn't really believe the mainstream and was questioning the mainstream. So I might add more information about that below as well, because there's more to discover there. Yeah, but there's another correlation. And
so can I ask a question? Why do
yeah.
you think Easter Island is such an important, because we hear about it all the time, about these huge carvings and the statues and the language of in how you talk about the little men and how they're very similar to the Polynesian hieroglyphs. Why do you think that we think it's so important, that little island? Is it because that it does incorporate languages from all around the world, or like so far away, or is it because it's such a remote place? What's your take on that?
I think it's so important because the image that we're shown as regular civilians, although I don't like that label, is how disconnected the world was back then. Like how, oh, we're so connected
Yeah, right.
now.
And this proves otherwise.
Oh, yes. And if a tiny little island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean can be connected to so many different places through what we've seen, because back then they didn't have phones, obviously, they connected in other ways, and our mindset can't comprehend how they would be in communication with these other
Yeah.
cultures and civilizations. We don't know how they would be connected to them because we're so easily connected with phones and stuff. We're in a completely different world. So our mindset isn't even thinking about the ways that they would possibly connect with each other back then.
Yeah.
But if there's this tiny little island in the ocean thousands of years ago that was in contact with multiple different people, multiple different civilizations across the oceans, across different sides of the world, then they're probably more connected than we are now, in a sense.
Yeah, right.
So it just changes everything. I think it changes so much about who we are as people, who we are today, why we are the way that we are today. Like
Yeah.
it's a secret, it's a hidden secret that would really unlock a lot of knowledge in who we are as a society today. And it's just I think it's amazing. I think it's incredible that that's the case, because I really do believe that this little island was really a core to the world, a core to the to everything, like a center point almost. And it's actually called the navel of the world, or the world's navel,
All right. Yeah.
which I'm I'm going to get into actually, because it's on that. Remember how in the ancient Egyptian video I was talking about how they're all, these different sites are all connected around the same line around the Earth. Well, it's Easter Island and all these places in, I believe, Peru, like Machu Picchu and stuff. And then that also connects to Giza. So it's all these places, like Easter Island is on that ley line. And that ley line, even though the places that I've talked about are those Easter Island, Peru, and also Giza, you keep going and there's all these other sites around that whole line. And that line going across the Earth is actually 30 degrees
Yeah,
off
that's right.
exactly from the equator. So that's also crazy. But yeah, I, that cannot be mistake.
Yeah.
Having all these sites along one line going across the whole globe, 30 degrees off the axis of the equator that we know today. That's mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. And
all the
there's
sites were
also
built at different times, is that right? They were all built around this same ley line around the circumference of the Earth at different times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was on purpose.
Yeah. Do you think it's on purpose?
Well, that's what it feels like to me. My feeling is, if they're being built at different points in history around that 30-degree off the equator line, it can't be a coincidence because they're all there.
Yeah.
And they're all significant, like the Giza and Easter Island and Machu Picchu, like they're all significant ancient civilizations.
Yeah. And it's also those have you heard of these like big huge images on the ground that can only be seen, like we only discovered them when we had airplanes, because when you're on the ground you can't see, but they're all around the same area as Machu Picchu. They're really famous. I've forgotten what their name is though, forgive me, but it's like these huge images. I'm pretty sure one is like of some sort of monkey or lemur sort of weird guy, and then some of them are like aliens. You cannot tell me anything else. Like, it's really weird. And there's these huge straight lines as well, like straight lines. And it's like it's like a crop circle. Imagine a crop circle, but images and lines. Like, it's not just
what are the
sacred
images made
geometry
out
and
of?
stuff. It's like, I think it's just dug out.
Oh, right.
And they've lasted like thousands and thousands of years. So that whole site is on that ley line as well. And there's others. Yeah, there's other sites. There's other sites in Africa. I believe in Turkey as well. I'm not sure, but there's a lot along this, equator, alternate equator. And another thing was, so there's a lot of sites that are known as the navel of Earth, or the navel. So Rapa Nui is one of them. Although Rapa Nui doesn't translate to navel, there is a site, and it's like the main site, and it correlates with the legend that is called the Earth's navel. So Easter Island is the Earth's navel. We'll just say that. And then there's also Karnak in Egypt is also correlated with navel. And what else? There's so much. There's just like all these sites, and I think I'm going to do a whole other video on that as well, just surrounding these sites that are known as the navel, and why we think that could be, why they chose the navel of all body parts, and also why there's so many that are known as the navel, like all through Egypt, also the site of Cuzco. Far out. My brain is a bit fried from today, but I'm pretty sure it's Cuzco. And like, there's just all these sites known as the navel, and I'm just kind of a bit, just wondering why that would be. Like, it just doesn't, I don't know. It's just kind of strange
the
that there's all
question
these.
needs to be asked.
Yeah. So I think let me just have a look through my. Oh yeah, I've got a little bit more. So there's these artifacts found on the island, and they're told to us, like, what's said to us is that these artifacts were weapons. Therefore, the people of Rapa Nui were warriors. And the thing about this, though, is that these artifacts, I mean, they could be weapons, but you're kind of pushing it. And to say that these people were warriors solely based on these artifacts is just, it's just, yeah, it's just dodgy. You're being a bit lazy to me. So, because these tools just as well could have been like for gardening, for sculpting, like we really don't know. And there was no fortresses found on the island either. So, you know, there's no like strong evidence to prove that they really were warrior type people. Because like fortresses are kind of a big part of that. And yeah, it's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Weird to say that. And a final point that I mean, it's kind of a bit of a sad point to end on, but the culture of Rapa Nui, it still exists today, but a lot of the ancient wisdom and the ancient knowledge has been lost because it was at one point reduced. The culture was reduced to 110 to 111 people in total of these Rapa Nui people because of the slave trade and also the natives and the wisdom keepers, most importantly, were forced to work in Peruvian mines. My God, I can't talk. Peruvian mines. So a lot of the knowledge has been lost. A lot of the ancient connection, like the connection to their ancestors and their legends have been lost. And so it's just kind of just a bit sad. And I think that's a big part of why there's so many loose ends here and so many questions. And of course, like all that sort of stuff is just a really sad part of our history and a really sad part of like the control that's going on. And has been going on because it's things like that we lose so much connection to ourselves in our past. Because I don't know, it saddens me because in today's day and age, you know, we're not allowed to, and I say we're not allowed, we are, but in society's eyes, we're not allowed to identify with other cultures really, especially if they're minority or a different skin color or something, and we're not allowed to identify with them or even identify as them. And I don't agree with that because we're all one people, and that, like, me saying that is not about taking other people's experiences away, because, you know,
it's about removing the barrier.
Removing the divide between us all. Like, we've all experienced this as humanity, whether you're white, you're black, you're Asian, you know, Polynesian. We've all experienced every culture through our past lives, through, and I say past lives, through our future lives as well. We've experienced everything, and we're all here on the planet experiencing life today, right now. And that's enough to connect us all. And I think the slave trades that's happened, like this whole slave trade thing, all the slavery in the past, all the things that have completely obliterated so many cultures out of today's world and just destroyed lives. We all went through that in some way, and we're all experiencing the repercussions of that today. And we're all one people. There's no skin color. It's just a way to label and divide. Like, we're all one people. So yeah, it's just really sad to hear about. I don't know, it's just frustrating as well, to read about how these people were just killed off and forced into slavery, and now we don't know what it was like back then, you know?
We
don't have that connection. We don't have answers. And it really allows the mainstream and you know, the elites to just come up, fill the holes of the story with whatever information they see fit. So yeah, I think it's just a little bit sad. Yeah, it's just a little bit sad. But that's all the information I have so far about it, but I might make a part 2. We'll see.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you for
Are you
raising
complete,
all the
Mum?
questions. And hey?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just asking, are you complete, or do you have any other questions?
No, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Juliet.
My pleasure. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. And yeah, it was interesting to read about and learn about. So sending my love to you all, and we'll see you on Friday with our new guest.
Yes. Beautiful. Bye.